Again, I'm so grateful to be in community partnership and sisterhood with you always. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Presley. It was amazing. I didn't know if Liz or anybody from the Massachusetts team just wanted to holler back.
I mean, I have tears in my eyes. I just love you. really love you. I see the bigness and the wholeness of your vision of us as humans, the work we've been doing, how you bring all that together, you bring trauma and healing into a room like this, which isn't always what gets talked about in these kinds of rooms. Sorry. And it's just like, you know, you sort of mentioned that, like, because of Ayana Presley, we have a database that anybody in Boston can go look up how this company, that company is doing on their jobs, and end users are looking at that data. And general contractors, when they're selecting subcontractors, are looking up that data. And tradeswomen groups and the labor movement is looking at that data to see where is the equity happening. And, you know, I think it was your mother or grandmother, that line, that which gets measured gets done. I quote it all the time, and it's such an important piece of this, and Michelle will speak a little bit to it. But it is, Congresswoman has come to our holiday parties, she has, like, gone to Connecticut with us to look at other models, she's like, this is just, I just love you.
I love you too. And again, thank you for being my teacher in every way, and you taught me that support is a verb. It's a demonstrated action, you know, honestly, and you challenged me to be a better lawmaker, so that we would not just offer verbal bouquets, but actually legislate in a way that truly shows our gratitude and the reciprocity of what each and every one of you are owed. So, come through Massachusetts. I appreciate it. All right. I'll see you on the front line.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, also for bringing up what this means to women's wages, our earnings, and the wealth gap over time, and really gaining access to jobs that are funded by this bipartisan infrastructure law. So, Kelly McClellan, turning to you now, where I usually see you as part of your union, that matters, is on the job site. So it's actually fun to meet you in person.
Yeah, no, we've had these meetings, you know, this, I don't know, the last few months or whatever, and it's always me from my piece with heavy equipment at work. Hi everybody, I'm Kelly McClellan, 26-year member of the Operating Engineers Local 101 in Kansas City. I sit on a very small IUOE Sisters Leadership, or International Leadership Committee. I'm also on the steering committee for the National Task Force on Tradeswomen's Issues. And I am secretary of Heartland Women in Trades, which is the Kansas City metro area local tradeswomen's organization. We have roughly 15, 20 members. You know, we're small and mighty, all in our own, you know, monthly meetings. A little bit about myself. I grew up in a family, my mom and dad were married for 50 years. My dad was a union IBEW brother. He retired about the same time I got in, so he's about 55 years in now, just turned 86. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for the most part. She had odd jobs when I was growing up, but that union job really provided for our family. I had a twin brother. I have a twin brother. When we were younger, we were close. We were, you know, played with his Tonka trucks and my Barbies together. So a lot of my world, you know, was geared towards, you know, boy stuff. And sometimes it was just more fun to have, you know, play with the Tonka trucks than it was. We were out in the dirt a lot. I was an athlete. I wanted to wrestle when I was in high school. Believe it or not, at almost 6 foot tall and probably taller than most boys, that wasn't allowed. I'm a girl. So now we have the high school I went to has its own women's wrestling team. So, absolutely. I did keep stats for the wrestling team, and the wrestling coach was our woodshop teacher. So I took woodshop in high school because that's boy things. I did the stuff that they do. So that being said, my dad, union electrician. I took woodshop in high school. Still, no one said, hey, maybe you should take a path of career in the trades. So with all that on my side, I did go to Patricia Stevens Fashion Career College in modeling. Fashion merchandising. So a whole other route. How I got into trades, I was actually just talking to a cousin of mine because I was making $7 an hour and she was making $19 an hour. She was in the construction industry working for one of the largest construction companies. She's still there. And she's like, I answered an ad in the paper. And I said, well, you know what, I think it'd be fun to operate one of those skid steers. I probably said bobcat back in the day because that was the term, but now that I'm an actual operating engineer, skid steer is the appropriate term. And she said, really, my mom's an instructor up at the Operating Engineers Local 1 training program. And I'm like, your mom? Really? So I applied. That was April of 1996, and I got it in August of 96. Women need clear pathways to these jobs. There's just not a clear way for us to do it, and programs that are publicly funded and available for every major market. Currently, with the Wanto money that's available now, the small organizations like ours can't really compete. We actually have a grant writer that came to us. One of our plumber sisters, her literal sister, is a grant writer, and she was going to do it for pro bono for us. And she's like, you're not ready for this grant. And so we didn't apply. And so organizations like Heartland and Trades, like I was in the piece of equipment yesterday. I told my boss I'm only working 8 hours because I got to take a plane ride, and so I'm on the job all day, every day. So we volunteer. Any hour after that is all of this work is just volunteer. So we need the support to help us be able to grow as an organization and actually do the things that our other sisters are doing in their areas, and the Wanto funding is one of those things that could provide that. And if we had more money in the Wanto grant, we could do mentorship programs with Tradeswomen Inc. and PGTI and Oregon Tradeswomen and Chicago Women Trades. That way, us smaller organizations would be able to have some of the Wanto, that money would be phenomenal for us to be able to have programs like Rise Up. I go to the Safe from Hate Me. I'm your Zoom buddy. If you're having a Zoom and you're procrastination, I am there. I was so happy when Oregon Tradeswomen had their institute on Zoom, and I was like, oh, thank God for COVID. It's the first time I ever said thank God for COVID because I could actually join their institute. I was like, it's always sometime when I can't travel to Oregon, and I'm like, oh, this is great. This is like amazing because I get to be with my sisters in something that I could be in, but. We don't have that connection where we're at because we're just, like I said, 15 volunteer women that meet on the last Sunday of the month at 1 o'clock, and we try to do what we can with support of our other tradeswomen's organizations. And if we had that mentorship, it would be really, really great for us to be able to work on the hiring goals of 6.9%, workforce hours for women in the construction industry. That would be phenomenal in our area. We actually had our airport job, I think they got to 7.6 with accountability and a workforce board that was, making those hours accountable, which isn't normal in our area, so hold on to your seats. But our PLAs in Kansas City are 2% women. Whoa. I said 2% women are job sites. So if you figure a job site, that has, 20, 30 people, you can have, a third of a woman. I'm not sure what it comes out to, but it's really small. And if we had more appropriations to be able to, grow and, hire someone to actually help us with the, I don't have any connections with anybody in our area because all my other volunteer time is volunteering. And so it would be really great if we could, just grow the numbers and be able to help organizations like ours or Texas Women in Trades or, just the smaller organizations that are just trying to make a make it good for, like she said, for the women coming up behind me. I do this for they're like, why are you going to this though? Why are you doing it? Because it's not for me. I'm 26 years in. I get to retire fairly soon. Not as soon as Sister Liz, but soon. And you know, those sisters coming up behind me, I can tell you that this year I have, I don't know if you guys understand the working hours. I have just over 600 working hours this year in my machine. 600 is for most of you in this room, it is not enough to get a pension credit, but it was for me. We have to have 500 hours at my local, so I barely made it to, and it's September. So yeah, you know, we've work to do, but those sisters behind me need to be able to have a family and raise their family. Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Janelle, I'm betting you're picking up where Kelly just left off because you wear multiple hats. So why don't you tell us about how you're coming to this?
Yes, it's an honor to be here today. I'm Janelle Dejan. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, born and raised there. And I organized a group called NOLA Women in Skilled Trades and Manufacturing Careers. One of my other hats that I wear is also doing training for young people who are looking at making this decision before they get out of high school to enter in the trades. So I'm in front of those kids Monday through Friday, and it's an opportunity for me to share with them and advocate for the trades on the behalf of all the trades, even though I'm from the IBEW and went through an apprenticeship, and I've been an electrician for 21 years now. I'm preferential to electrical, but I want to make them aware of all of the opportunities that exist for them so that they can have those paths to high wage, high earning dollars for their family, to buy homes, to get out of poverty, and all the things that we've been mentioning. And so while I'm championing for an alternative to the college path that most of them are directed into, I'm also looking at my students and saying, why aren't more women in these seats, more girls? And then I'm thinking about where they come from and what their family needs that's sending them there. Like their parents, their moms that's head of the household where they may be from single parent families, that they could have been accessing the high wage that we get in the skilled trades. So when I started NOLA Women in Skilled Trades, my first objective was to reach other tradeswomen because we needed more voices, right? We talked about data, we talked about stories. Everybody's telling a story, and it just shows me how important the story part and getting that knowledge out to people will help inform their decisions. So we meet monthly trying to find the tradeswomen that exist. We don't have a lot of them as far as I can see in New Orleans, but getting those other people and allies and different industry partners has been the goal for over the last year and so of just letting people know what I'm trying to do, and that's make more opportunities for women in the trades. So some of the questions that we've been having is like, where do we start, of course, right? You know, starting trying to find people, and if I find people, what is it that we're asking for? What is it that we need to know in order to do this work and make these improvements that we see are much needed? So on a local level, we know we need partnerships with contractors, we need good workforce development, we need information getting out to people, career fairs, so that people can know this is not just men jobs for men, this is for everybody. So when we get to the infrastructure law that we see is coming down and everybody's talking about all the dollars that are coming, we want to know how are we going to be included as Black people, minorities in our city? How are women going to be included in a part of that? Are they going to be bringing workers from out of town, or are we training some people who are here so that they can access these jobs? So we want to know, like, those federal regulations. Who knows that? Where do we go? Who are our local partners who are getting the infrastructure funding, and what resources are available to get more women and people of color on the public projects that will receive those funds? So you can imagine this hasn't been a very easy route that we're taking. We're taking on a big challenge from multiple different aspects. So it would help us if we had some streamlined information, much like you mentioned in Boston, where you have somewhere to see who's receiving what money, where is it being subcontracted to, so you can have an idea of where to look for opportunity. So with things like Congress, why we're here today, is to look at what we can ask Congress to do to provide more oversight, because oversight is going to be the key to making sure that the agencies are giving us some equity in a piece of what they're doing, right? So we want to prioritize our state and local partners that are receiving funds, that they all are part of making sure that this happens for us, as well as enforcing federal requirements to increase workforce diversity, right? I did this work for such a long time, I must say, working along with many of my IBEW brothers, supported me very well through it, but there wasn't, many other women in this, so that's why I'm really glad to have this opportunity to be amongst all these people who have led such glorious careers and are reaching back to make things better for people coming behind them, because that's my mission too, right? To leave the union and the industry better than I found it. Amen.
Janelle, thank you so much for sharing all of that. We just have a couple more speakers, and then I want to make sure we open it up, especially to the offices that are in the room, to pose questions of this amazing panel. So Michelle, I happen to know you were Tradeswoman of the Year last year. And also a lot of folks have talked about this equation of the supply side. So, how are we recruiting more women, more people of color into these amazing jobs, but also the demand side, what makes us do that, right? What's the accountability that makes us do that? So maybe you could share a little bit, and then Maya, I just want you to pick up from there and talk about the work OFCCP does.
All right, thank you. So yeah, my name is Michelle Wright. I've been a carpenter for 11 years, and now I'm also a part-time instructor in our apprenticeship, and I'm a project engineer in the field on a job site as we speak. I'm also a part of the policy group on tradeswomen issues, a multi-stakeholder and collaboration where we work to crush the barriers for women in construction and have developed the best practice and have good results. For example, at 10.4% for Massachusetts, now has the highest participation rate for women registered apprenticeship in the country. In addition, we've developed hiring best practices, which have allowed us to meet our exceeding workforce goals of over $7 billion in construction over the last 14 years. Becoming a union carpenter has transformed my life by giving me access and equal pay as a Black woman, something I can't get in almost any other industry. In Massachusetts, we identify one key game changer. To successfully increase the numbers of women in the industry, we need to integrate supply and demand and strategy. What my sisters have been talking about is critical: supply work, what you guys call supportive services, recruiting, training, supporting more women in the trades. As they said, the absolute need is more funding. The second thing we want to ask you for today is to increase the robustness of our oversight of demand side, meaning getting women employed on these federal funded jobs. This means on the last three things: more funding and oversight for the Office of Federal Contract and Compliance. The OFCCP, to do an effective job on compliance on this, increases the amount of federal funded construction. They need more staff and better training for their staff and how to do compliance in the construction industry, where unlike supplying services, people get hired and laid off every day. In addition to more funding, we also ask that you monitor OFCCP efforts to make sure the recipient of the federal monies are actually taking the 16 steps that they require to do under their contract and making meaningful good faith efforts to each of their goals, 6.9% of hours being performed by women. If recipients follow these rules, it will go a long way towards opening jobs on these infrastructure projects for women. Second, I'd also like to ask you to require public reporting of results for federal agencies' efforts, which would include the proportion of total of work hours worked by women, Hispanic, African American, and each census identified race group for each infrastructure project. With Congresswoman Presley's help, Boston created a public searchable database for workforce compliance of all the projects in Boston. The data has become enormously useful for end users, contractors, and the public to have good info on which companies and projects are meeting hiring goals. Without the data, no one can be held accountable and will be flying blind. Finally, I ask you to require federal infrastructure construction contractors to use access and opportunity committees to oversee hiring in projects. PGTI has used this committee with great success in Massachusetts, where we have exceeded the federal workforce goal over $7 billion worth of public construction. These committees bring together federal funding agencies, project owners such as State Department, Transportation, prime contractors, subcontractors, trade unions, community groups like PGTI, meeting regularly to report on progress and brainstorming ideas for recruiting and retaining women of people of color. We need your help. Federal funded construction doesn't have a great track record of creating opportunities for people who look like me, but we know how to do it right. If we apply these best practices, this once-in-a-generation investment will open the doors and opportunities and transform not just our built environment, but also our lives and our communities.
Thank you so much. I've noticed that we have Representative Dean here with us, who co-chairs the Bipartisan Women's Caucus, and we're talking, Representative Dean, with tradeswomen across the country who are really working every day. To recruit and train and also ensure that women can be retained on the job, especially in this huge moment where billions of dollars are making their way into states and cities through the bipartisan infrastructure law. So
I'm delighted. I just wanted to step in, say hello, say I support your work and your points that you were just making so eloquently, that it is not just about, it's important, building our built environment in the safest way, but it is about building lives and careers and families in the best way. So I'm Madeline Dean from Pennsylvania. I represent suburban Philadelphia, the 4th Congressional District, Montgomery and Berks counties. I'm co-chair of the Bipartisan Women's Caucus, so women and labor is an issue that we lift up, but also the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Thank you for tapping into that. There's so much in there. We have to make sure in a very transparent way that women are part of the labor force for all of these terrific future thinking projects. And I'll tell you one other thing that I'm working on, and the president has this on his agenda also, but we haven't gotten it done yet, which is America's College Promise. And that is free community college and technical training. Think of how that will change the life of women and girls and men too, but also how it will change the debt structure, the burden of education and the debt of education. So I'll end with this little story. President came into caucus when we were doing bipartisan infrastructure, and then we were pivoting toward Build Back Better, which became, of course, Inflation Reduction Act. And he came in and he started by saying, all right, I didn't get everything I wanted in this bill. In fact, I may be sleeping in a separate bedroom because I didn't get the community college piece in. As you know, Dr. Biden, a professor at community college forever and ever and ever. So just happy to support you, lift you up. Thank you for your excellence, your hard work in building our communities.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Representative Dean. So, Maya, turning the conversation to you now to talk about one of the strongest levers we have on equal employment opportunity.
Great. Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for being here, and I'm thrilled to be sitting at a table with all these amazing leaders leaders from across the country. I'm Raghu. I'm the Deputy Director for Policy at the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, what a mouthful, OCCP. We are a federal civil rights agency at the Department of Labor. We have nearly 50 offices across the country, and through them, we make sure that companies that are doing business with the federal government meet their obligations to ensure equal employment opportunity for all. And so we are going to play a vital role with the federal contracting community to ensure that these landmark bills that we've been talking about today, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the CHIPS Act, Inflation Reduction Act, create good jobs that provide equal employment opportunity for all. So most of you who are in this room know how we do our work. It's a combination of enforcement, where we are actually looking at contractors' hiring, recruitment practices, all kinds of employment practices and policies. We're looking at their data. We're looking at what is going on with women, people of color, people with disabilities, protected veterans in their workforces. We're going on site to their workplaces to see what's happening and to talk to workers and get a better understanding of what's happening and seeing if contractors are meeting their obligations, and if not, what steps we need to take. We're doing outreach, not just here in our national office, but in our offices across the country with communities and stakeholders. And we also do a lot of compliance assistance to make sure that federal contractors, whether they've been around for a long time or they're new contractors as a result of all this infrastructure funding, understand what their obligations are as federal contractors and, are able to meet them. So that's a big part of our work as well. To meet this moment, this year OFCCP significantly expanded its construction enforcement program to promote greater compliance by new and existing contractors on these new federally funded infrastructure projects. So some of them will be supply and service contracts, but as we all know, a large proportion are going to be construction projects. Some of them are going to be federal direct projects through GSA, and a lot of them will be federally assisted contracts, right? Project sponsors that are state departments of transportation or other project, state and local sponsors. We have also been preparing to reinitiate our mega construction project program, which many of you know about and have worked on before. And this is a special program within our construction enforcement. This mega construction program has a track record of fostering equal employment opportunity in the construction trades workforce on these federal construction projects. In the past, we've had different thresholds and sort of criteria for projects that have become mega projects. Right now, we're focusing on projects that are going to have a higher threshold and are going to be large contracts that are going to go on for more than a year. And that's to make sure that we are focusing our resources on projects that have the greatest potential to have an impact, a positive impact in the community. And what does it mean when a project is a mega construction project? It means we are going to provide a heightened level and a special level of compliance assistance, of coordination and engagement, of compliance assistance, and of course enforcement and evaluations of contractors in a project. But we are going to take a special look to ensure that the recruitment and hiring practices are building robust applicant pools from the community so that talented workers, especially those from underrepresented communities, have access to the good jobs that are going to be created. So there's a heavy emphasis in mega projects on the front end engagement, which is really critical because that means right from the beginning of a project, OFCCP can be there with the project sponsor, with the funding agency, with community organizations, with the unions, with state and local governments, and we can go in and bring them together to start talking, including to potential contractors, what is going to be happening on this project? What are the goals that are going to be set? Are you going to just stay at the 6.9 national goal for women, or would you set a higher goal? And how can this group of stakeholders working together ensure that you can meet or exceed that goal? So that engagement on the front end and bringing stakeholders together so that individuals and groups in the community are aware of job opportunities and know about them early on, so the contractors are aware of potential recruitment and hiring sources in the communities in which the project is situated. All of that is really critical in engagement with the unions, and that's what OFCCP can help do during the life of the project. So we're not just coming in on the back end with the enforcement to see what have they done and have they met those obligations. We're also there on the front end in mega projects to make sure that from the start, we are building something that's going to promote equal employment opportunity. The last thing I'll say is that we have also been working very closely with the department's Good Jobs Initiative, and through the Good Jobs Initiative have been actually engaging with a lot of the other federal agencies that are funding these infrastructure projects: Department of Transportation, Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, Department of Defense, GSA, and the department's developing MOUs with these agencies and building in provisions around labor standards and equal employment opportunity, including mega projects. So, for example, in a recent notice of funding opportunity from the Department of Transportation, they put in a clause that said if your project receives a grant through this notice of funding opportunity from the Department of Transportation and OFCCP designates your project as a mega project, you have to participate, which is a major change from the past where OFCCP would have to ask project sponsors and contractors to participate and they could say no. But now with these projects that have this clause, they will have to participate and they know that. So that saves us a lot of time on the front end and ensures and supports a strong working relationship.
Should we just show up at the project, or should we call ahead? I'm with her. Let's just show up. It's all about it.
So that Department of Transportation has been one of the agencies that has been sort of out in front and starting to fund these projects and roll out the grants. And we know that more and more agencies are following behind them. So just be on the lookout for announcements from OFCCP about the mega projects program and the projects that have been designated as mega projects. And so we really look forward to working closely with all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for those helpful handles on how to follow up with OFCCP and what the work is going forward. Just take a minute to thank our entire amazing panel. Out the door right now. What I wanted to do next, if you need to do that, please do that, is to open up the floor to offices first in the room who want to ask questions of this great panel. So please go ahead. Starting us and welcoming us. So my name is Wendy Chun-Hoon. I serve as the director of the Women's Bureau at the Department of Labor. And we have an impressive lineup of tradeswomen with us today, both those that you see up here at the table with me, but also many in the audience who are eager to raise their voices as well. They're representing more than a dozen states, I think it is, just in the room, maybe more at last head count. And these are the folks that are working every day to rebuild our country's infrastructure. They represent a wide, diverse range of not just occupations and experiences, but also across the skilled trades, and you're going to share some of that today. And just, really are at the heart of what this moment is about, as Congress has passed billions of dollars that Congress has passed is really moving into the states and into our communities. This is where our focus should be. These are the women who are, again, rebuilding America's infrastructure, and we need more of them in these good jobs. Okay, so before I turn it over to you all, and I ended up standing, but don't feel like you need to stand, we can sit down. I wanted to share a little bit about the Women's Bureau. I don't know if everybody knows, but we are the only congressionally mandated federal agency to really represent the needs of working women every day. So, 102 years. We're 102 years old. Not just me in the room, but several folks from our national office, and you might just raise your hand so folks know how to find you, and also our regional administrators who are really out across the country doing the work of the Women's Bureau and in support of working women like these folks. Our priorities right now probably are obvious. We have made a big priority around this pattern, this persistent pattern that we call occupational segregation. So where are women working in the economy? We are working, and women of color are working largely in the lowest paying jobs in the economy, sometimes the care jobs, the hospitality, leisure jobs, lowest paid jobs. And too few of us are in the kinds of jobs that you all are gonna talk about today, the higher paying, good jobs with benefits, with retirement security. So the Women's Bureau is absolutely focused on addressing this pattern of occupational segregation and what we can do about it in this moment. Women's Bureau is also highly attentive because women are their family's caregivers, whether you've got young kids or you're taking care of older parents. So the lack of a care infrastructure has deep impact on our wages, on our lifetime earnings, and so we're highly attentive to continuing to make the case for care and investments in care. And then finally, across the spectrum of jobs that we hold, we still face too much discrimination, harassment, sometimes violence in the workplace. And so we are keeping the drumbeat going for how we actually disrupt and end gender-based violence and harassment in the world of work. Just a finer point, because part of what the Women's Bureau does is a lot of research, a lot of data analysis, policy analysis, and so our colleague, who's sitting right over here, Sarah Jane Glynn, worked on a really big report for us this year for the Department of Labor. It's called Bearing the Cost, and it actually put a dollar value on the impact of occupational segregation. So just so you're walking away with it in 1 year alone, the fact that women are in the lowest paying jobs and not enough in the highest paying jobs, and the fact that we lack a care infrastructure, 1 year alone, the cost to women's wages, black women's wages, $39.3 billion. For Hispanic women, $46.7 billion, that's 1 year. So clearly we've got an opportunity. The Women's Bureau and Department of Labor and partners at Cornell's Worker Institute are hosting a big summit tomorrow. We'll be talking about a lot of these issues. You are all welcome to attend. It will be at the Department of Labor. And one last thing I'll say before handing it over to this awesome panel is one of the signature programs at the Women's Bureau is our WANTO program, Women in Apprenticeship and Non-Traditional Occupations. It's actually a grant program. It is teeny tiny, it's $3 million roughly annually, but it is going to invest in the kinds of work that you'll hear about today. Tradeswomen who are leading this kind of work all across the country to get more folks, more women of color into these good jobs with the training, with the support to access apprenticeship, and to really be successful in these jobs where, again, we are the minority. So the WANTO program is investing in all of that. You'll hear some about what that impact has been. I think over the past several years, we now have coverage in every region across the country through our WANTO partners, probably in a good 25 states, but it's not everywhere. And so we're really looking to see that program grow. Finally, we have our colleague from Department of Labor, Raghu, who's the Deputy Director at the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs. They play a very key role in seeing through equal employment opportunities, including in federally contracted construction. So Maya's going to talk a little bit more about that. So without further ado, I'm handing this conversation to you, Cristina, to kick us off.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Thank you for having me here. My name is Cristina Barillas-McEntee. I come from Chicago. I'm a plumber of 22 years, proud plumber. From Plumbers Local 130 UA out of Chicago. I'm currently living in DC area and working for a non-for-profit organization called the Labor Council of Latin American Advancement. And I think this is a great and a very important conversation to have because as a tradeswoman, I have seen a lot of disparity that has gone with women and losing women. And we focus on recruitment, without really focusing on retention. And I'm the chair of Chicago Women in the Trades, and that is an organization that has been helping, trying to create a little bit more retention within all the trades. And it's very important for women to stay, because I'm very fortunate. But me being very fortunate doesn't help the tens of thousands of women that are trying to get into a trade to be just as fortunate. I'm a plumber of 22 years. I have a great career. I earned a great skill. I got a license that nobody can take away from me. But what about everybody else behind me that has started that program and didn't get that same job opportunity, didn't get the full training, and then all of a sudden had to either drop out of the program, got dropped out of the program, or somehow just slowly disappeared and then is no longer. I mean, this is time that they had spent trying to build a career and trying to really make something substantial for the family, something to get themselves, their family, their community, uplift their community out of, you know, a social economic status that we're all in. You know, Latinas, women of color, we are not in the highest paid jobs. So it's something that we need to look at. The funding needs to, I'm glad we have some funding, and you can't make light of that, but more funding is definitely needed for programs such as Chicago Women in Trades, so we can get more women and try to keep more women in these trades and really make them build a career and have a career and be able to end and retire and enjoy what they have learned, what they have done, what they have built. I mean, I know some of us driving down the street, be like, I built that building, and I'm very proud of doing that, but I would be a hell of a lot prouder if I knew the girls behind me could also do that same thing and say those same words that I would say. And it is something, accountability needs to be looked at, within our unions, within government programs. And that is very important, making sure that we keep our women where they belong. They deserve those jobs, they deserve those chances, they deserve that opportunity and the ability to do what every other man can possibly do in this supposed man's field. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. With the exception of Maya and me, everyone up here is a tradeswoman, which I think I said at the top. So thank you for introducing your trade, your union, et cetera. And Kelly, I want to go next to you. So I know you'll start with that introduction as you always do.
Yeah.
But I just pick up on two things maybe Cristina said, like, you are like Chicago Women in Trades, Oregon Tradeswoman is one of the really strong programs across the country and has figured out this partnership with local government, your unions, your employers. So just tell us a little bit about that model, and after you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Wendy, and thank you to you and your team for the hard work the Women's Bureau has done. And I think it's safe to say on behalf of the National Task Force on Trades Women Issues, we are so excited to be in this moment in history with you all. And without your leadership, we would not be here, and we would not be able to lift up voices of tradeswomen. So we just want to thank you. And of course, thank you to the Bipartisan Women's Caucus and other congressional members who may be here listening when Allie posts her podcast about this. But I am Kelly Kupcak. I'm with Oregon Tradeswomen. I'm the executive director there. When I was in the field, I was a union heavy equipment operator with Local 18 out of Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm really proud to be doing the work at Oregon Tradeswomen to help not only get women in, as Cristina said, but also keep women in, right? And we could not do that without the partnership that we have with industry and also community. We work very closely with culturally specific organizations because when we're talking about retention, the root of it, everybody in this room knows it, is occupational segregation is part of it, but sexism and racism. And that is a huge piece of the work that we're doing in Oregon. And my sister Amber McCoy is here from Oregon, also from the Carpenters. Yes, the Carpenters in the house. It's part of our Safe from Hate Alliance, where we are working to eliminate job site harassment and gender-based violence. And it's prevalent. And sadly, Oregon's been in the news because we've had nooses on our job sites. and our community stood up to say no more. And we have been working closely with public owners. So our regional government, Metro Regional Government, the city of Portland, Multnomah County, and folks at the state. And they're not always as keen to work with us, but you know, we show up and gently nag them a bit to partner with us. And certainly our workforce investment boards across Oregon. Because also, in addition to women needing these jobs and staying in these careers, we know, as Wendy said at the top of this, women of color are disproportionately impacted, and our sisters that live in rural communities. And now in this moment, with this historic infrastructure investment, we can shift that. This is, I don't know, maybe there's rocket scientists in the room and they know how to do it, but this isn't rocket science. We know proven strategies. When you look around the room and you look around our community of practice, there are tradeswomen everywhere and tradeswomen organizations led by tradeswomen who do trades work in the day and then show up to run their volunteer organizations at night. And organizations like Meg's organization, Tradeswomen New, in Washington, New in New York City, Chicago Women in Trades, we're around, we're here, and we know the answers. So we want to partner with folks to listen to what we're doing. So just a quick example, and I wrote too much stuff because I don't know, I had too much content. But let me say this, you know, one of the things that we have learned is that with job training, and we do pre-apprenticeship readiness training, it's important, it's quick. In 8 weeks, we prepare women. Some programs are 12 weeks, some are 16. But the reality is, it's not a 4-year degree. And then we get folks into registered apprenticeship. But when we are moving folks that have like generational poverty and other barriers and all kinds of that jazz, you can't just do job training. You have to couple it with support services, and not like, oh, here's a $25 gift card to Fred Meyer so you can get some gas, but like housing stability, childcare stuff, so that we can interrupt and disrupt generational poverty. We can move women from poverty to prosperity so they can care for their families. 1 in 3 women in Oregon has a household in poverty. That is appalling. It's appalling, and we should not accept that anymore. So I don't want to depress anybody, because here's the thing, we have the answers, right? So when we have funding at scale for pre-apprenticeship training, for job readiness, coupled with support services and retention services, but also we have to shift the job site culture. And our friends at OCCP and EEOC and other folks who are doing that kind of work, to work in partnership with us, to use policies that are on the books that we know work, but enforce them. And if you need some lessons on enforcement, come talk to me, because I'm from Cleveland, so I can get pushed. Portland's always like, who invited this lady? But this is the work we are called to do together to make a difference. And this is the moment that we have to do it together. And I'm not really good at math, which is why I became an operator, not a carpenter. But anyways, don't tell me I said that. But so we look at Oregon's minimum wage is $12.75 an hour. 93% of the women that come through our program are very low income. 73% are on staff, okay? So our average starting wage after placement last year was $22.81. So in the first year, that is doubled. So women are not getting a hand out, they're getting a hand up, and they are reinvesting back into their communities, reinvesting back into their economy. So when we look at the costs of pre-apprenticeship and supportive services, I don't know if this is a technical term, it's really chump change. When you look at the long-term economic investment and what we're doing to shift all those things and really move people into a place of prosperity. And I did some math, but it might not be right. But anyway, just so the quick thing I want to say about Oregon, that we've been really lucky to work with our partners. And tomorrow, if you come to the Equity and Focus Summit, I'm on a panel with Larry Williams, who works for our Bureau of Labor and Industries and manages the Federal Highway Administration's OJT Supportive Services Program on behalf of our Department of Transportation. And he is just a tremendous advocate. Some of the work that we've done is to talk about how we need to couple support services deeply. And childcare is an allowable support services in Oregon, and we're talking about bringing it to scale. They've also invested in a Respectful Workplaces program. So we are the Oregon affiliate provider for Rise Up, Respect, Inclusion, Safety, and Equity, that our sister organization in Seattle, and I don't know if Karen Dove is in the room, They created it, and we are working with 12 public owners right now who all of the workers on their sites are going through this training. We're at the Portland airport where 10,000 y'all, workers are going through respectful workplace training. And I was in the airport yesterday looking around to see, oh yeah, there's our signs. It's very powerful. So also just want to touch briefly on the supply and demand issue. And the person who speaks this most eloquently in my whole life is Liz Skidmore over there. But we have policy levers in place, right? So when we have goals, workforce equity goals on the job site, let's enforce them. But let's not wag our fingers at who's not doing it right. Let's bring them in. Let's bring them in to partner with that, because our employers, they need skilled, qualified workers. We have them. We have them. So let's work in partnership. We're doing that in our community. And let's use the policy levers that we can where we know work. In Oregon, we worked with our Department of Human Services. The employment-related daycare had some snafus in it where women in our program were exempt from getting it because it wasn't considered work. So we met with the director. I mean, it really was so easy. We met with the director and we said, this is stupid. We said it nicer. But we said, this is a barrier. Can we fix it? And they did an administrative change. These are things that we can do together. Again, not rocket science. So just centering policy, practice, and programs in equity. We're also really lucky because our governor, Kate Brown, who's sadly on her way out because her term is up with term limits, but she put together a racial justice committee. And all of that work is informing where infrastructure dollars are being spent and how they're being spent. And our Department of Transportation, Oregon Tradesmen sat on the subcommittee for workforce equity. We informed how the dollars are going to be put out to the community and what equity principles need to be in there. So centering our work in equity and working collaboratively and bringing investments to scale, as you said so eloquently, sister. So that's all I got, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to welcome Representative Ayana Presley. Into these jobs that are going to be created through the bipartisan infrastructure investment, but also how we support them, right? Needs for childcare, needs for stable housing, all the things that we know that you champion. And also how do we make sure that women can stay in these good jobs, addressing gender-based violence and harassment in these work sites. So this huge moment in front of us that the country has made available, and how do we really see more tradeswomen like those that are here today get into these good jobs. So Representative Presley.
I don't want to have my back to anyone, which is why I didn't want to sit on the corner. So, and I have some notes, not because I don't know what to say, but because I'm the granddaughter of a Baptist preacher and I have too much to say. So just trying to figure out how best to stay on message here. Can I talk with somebody and maybe just a little bit more in here? Okay, thank you.
It's my honor.
While I'm walking, is Massachusetts in the house? Thank you so much, sisters. I appreciate it. Listen, I love being in a room with my sisters and the men who have sense enough to be here. We thank you. I find whenever we come together, it's sort of equal parts, briefing, rally, revival. It's just extraordinary to be in community with each and every one of you. And again, thank you for the invitation to join you. And one of the things that I say this every time because it never grows old for me, what I love about the labor movement is that we do greet each other as brothers and sisters because this is a movement that understands that we are one human family and that our freedom and our destinies are truly tied. And I can say, having recently been in attendance at our annual Boston Labor Day breakfast, shout out to Darlene Lambos. I call that breakfast, it was a remix this year. It was a remix, but it was just such a reminder and a demonstration of the evolution of the labor movement, and that there is this understanding truly that our destinies are tied on everything from workers' rights to reproductive justice, to the LGBTQ community, the equality fight. This is the type of movement that I'm so proud to be a part of, one that is intentional and inclusive and really representative of this entire country. And so it's wonderful to be here with all of you today, my brothers and sisters. Certainly the work of creating a real pathway to a good living wage are union jobs, for women and folks of color. And this is an issue that has been close to my heart and my advocacy since my time on the Boston City Council. I've been in Congress, had the humbling honor of serving in this capacity representing Massachusetts 7th for 4 years now. This is a district that is vibrant, diverse, dynamic, and one of the most unequal in the country, and the most unequal in our Massachusetts delegation. And that is true across all outcomes, but especially and including when it comes to the wealth gap, the racial wealth gap, the gender wealth gap, in a 3-mile radius in my district from Harvard Square in Cambridge to Nubian Square in Roxbury, the blackest part of my district. Life expectancy drops by 30 years and median household income by $50,000. And how do we change that? We change that with the people in this room. We change that with good union jobs. And so this is an issue, again, that I've been championing since my time on the council, and it's really been an honor to have Liz as a teacher and a mentor, and I'm grateful for her strategic counsel and partnership, and so many of the issues that you championed and that we spoke about at that time, including childcare, are now part of the regular sort of discourse and lexicon of advocacy. And that was not always true, and that's why I say when women are in the room, we change the room. When we're at the table, we shake the table, right? And so we're here to take up space, but also to create it. And I hope you know that in me, more than a congresswoman, you have a sister in solidarity in the struggle and in these fights. And even when you were not in the room, and my chief of staff, Sarah Groh, can attest to this since we were at Luna last night, that you are in the room because I'm in the room. And I bring you up in every space, so please do know that. But it really has been an honor to partner with so many of you in this room, not just on federal policy, which is an essential piece here, but also on the practical, execution and implications here, ensuring that women who enter the trades can thrive, can build meaningful careers. This is about supporting families and working to prop up childcare with hours that actually work for tradeswomen, right? I mean, this was, again, some of the work I started on the council. We brought transparency, because in our office, we're big data geeks, and not data for the sake of data. I believe that which is measured gets done. And when we brought a spotlight to that data, and it had to be aligned and accessible, it helped us to move the needle because we had that accountability metric. So that we had more women, seeing this as a viable career option, and as a real career and a ladder up to freedom and economic justice and home ownership and vacations, and I wanted to say saving for college, but I'm trying to get rid of that altogether. Okay, so shout out to the labor movement again for this is an intersectional fight for being partners with myself and Senator Warren in the fight to cancel student debt. So let's just do a hand clap for that. So we grew those numbers, Liz, right? And then we heard from so many tradeswomen, but I can't do the thing that I've been trained to do and that I love to do because there is no childcare, right? So this is about supporting families, again, working to prop up childcare with hours that actually work for tradeswomen. It is about the work to build health and safe work sites in every sense of the word, and it's about prosperity. It's about creating opportunities for women to lead and build generational wealth for their families and generations to come. And again, it is about canceling student debt, and I thank the Biden-Harris administration for being responsive to this movement and to union families. That is a victory that will be felt by 43 million people. And so I thank our partners in the movement for making that victory possible. Too often during the past few years, folks have offered platitudes about essential workers, and you're certainly deserving of accolades and applause, but you're deserving of much more than verbal gratitude. You are deserving of policies which codify the value of your life and that of your families. I am grateful for your labor, but I'm here because I give a damn about your lives. There's so much more than your labor, and I say policy is my love language because I think in this country we have had a legacy and tradition, unfortunately, of treating trauma with more trauma, and usually that is done through policy, what I would characterize as policy violence. We have legislated hurt and harm, but I do believe it is possible to legislate equity, legislate healing, to legislate justice. And that is certainly the way in which I seek in cooperative governing in partnership with you to steward the power of my legislative pen, because you deserve policies that are proactive and responsive to your needs and that of your families. Again, I'll never define you simply by your work. You are a whole person. You are part of a family, a community. You are the aspirations of ancestors and elders manifest, and you are your baby's role models, and mine too. And again, so much more than your labor. And with the Biden-Harris administration in the White House, I know we are committed to recognizing your full contributions, your full humanity, and the policy solutions that you deserve and you demand. Now I will concede that I'm a voracious reader, and well, it's not a concession, but I will share that I am a voracious reader, you know, of many things, poetry being chief amongst them. And so I'm going to quote the great poet and philosopher of our times, Beyonce Knowles Carter, who said that we are strong enough to bear the children and get back to business.